What happens when we compare the two biggest surf boats in the market head to head, the MasterCraft X26 and the Centurion Ri265? In this first of a two-part video series, we are going to break down all of the differences between a MasterCraft X26 and a Centurion Ri265. We're going to take a look at the interior features and layout. We're going to take a look at all of the different technology and the innovations that will make it so that you can have a great time out on the water with either of these boats. We'll lay out the pros and cons to each one so that you can determine which one would be ideal for you. In our next video, we're going to be breaking down the performance aspects of these boats, comparing everything from how they drive to the surf wave that they produce. Let's take a closer look at the X26 and the Ri265. We're here at the front of the MasterCraft, and before I dive in and talk about the bow design in each one of these boats, there's one thing that's probably really important for you to be aware of as I'm going through these details. That is, I run the largest Centurion and Supreme boat dealership in the country, and so I have a vested interest in Centurion and Supreme boats. That said, I'm going to try and do my very best to not be biased in presenting the information. And in fact, I'll talk about the things that I actually really like on this MasterCraft that I think that they do a better job on than Centurion boats. To start off with that, like I mentioned, I'm going to talk about the bow design. Now you see on the MasterCraft, it's got a pickle fork bow shape that's really wide, and that's characteristic to the MasterCraft X series boats. It also has a side profile here to the bow that is more straight up and down instead of tapering down in. There's some advantages and some disadvantages to this. The advantages, you get a little bit more space in the bow, and as well as a little bit larger compartments underneath the bow fill cushions, which I'll show you when we get on the inside of the boat. The downside with having these straight wall tapers as opposed to rounding down in on the underside is that it's going to have a tendency to push the bow down into the water more when you're turning back into a surf wave. So you're going to need to be more careful so you don't take water coming in over the front of the bow of the boat. We're now going to go over to the bow of the Ri265. And this is something I've talked about in other different videos, but it has a different bow shape that starts a lot wider at the top perimeter and then tapers down and gets progressively narrower as it goes down towards the underside. As opposed to a straight shot here on the side, it's going to allow the bow to stay up higher out of the water when you turn back into waves, meaning that you're going to almost have to try to take water over the front of the boat, and it's going to lead to a much drier ride than a straight side profile. Like I mentioned, there's pros and cons to each one. As far as which one's going to be ideal for you, you just got to make that decision. And that is the theme that you're going to find as we go throughout both of these boats, because they're both incredible surf boats. It's just a matter of which one has the right features for you. All right, as I move towards the back of the boat, we're going to talk a little bit about hull design. But before I point that out, I want to actually talk about ballast system, because this is a really easy way to showcase the differences. So the MasterCraft X26 has a standard pump-driven ballast system. They're actually running high volume pumps, which really makes a big impact and makes it so you don't have to sit around for 20 minutes for the boat to fill. Centurion, on the other hand, is using ram fill ballast as well as pump-driven plug-and-play bags on top. What that means is that you're going to have roughly the same amount of ballast fill time on either one of these boats, just a few minutes. The main difference is that the Ri265 is going to be packing significantly more ballast, about 50% more ballast, that's going to fill in roughly that same period of time. Right here, this is the vent for the ram fill ballast system, where the vent holes for the MasterCraft are just simple through-hole fittings like you see on most surf boats that are out in the marketplace, and not really anything special or different. As we move back here to the back, this is one of the biggest differences between these two boats, which is the hull design as well as the different systems for creating a surf wave. Now, if you look here at the very back of the boat, you'll notice that the Ri265 has a significantly deeper cut V hull. What that means is that you have a measurement here at the back of the boat called dead rise. Now, MasterCraft doesn't publish dead rise numbers, but what that measurement is it's a measurement from the strake that is sitting right here and the angle that moves down towards the inside of the boat. It's probably somewhere right around 4 or 5 degrees. It's a relatively flat running surface here at the back. On the Ri265, you have the Centurion OptiV 2.0 hull, which features a 20-degree dead rise. This means that there's significantly more V in the bottom of the boat. Once again, there's going to be pros and cons to this. The con to having a deeper cut V-hull is that it's going to make it so that if you're doing a lot of wakeboarding, it's going to be slightly more weight sensitive from side to side to be able to clean up your wakeboard wake. The plus side with having that deeper cut V-hull is going to be that it's going to drive significantly better through rough water conditions, as well as be a lot easier to trailer the boat, which when you're talking about a boat the size of these ones at 26.5 feet, that can really make a big impact. Next up here on the back of the boat, you have the surf systems that are here on the sides. Now, MasterCraft and Centurion actually run two of the most similar surf systems of any surf boats. They both are a tab style design that deploys downwards to deflect water and will actually create a slight bit of lift on the back end of the boat. The main difference that you have is the Centurion plate is a true flat plate, a true tab style system, where the MasterCraft Gen 2 system, or sorry, the new, they call it Surfstar now. The new Surfstar system has these angled plates and ridges that come down off of the plate on the back of the boat. Now, this design really helps the MasterCraft wave clean up better versus a straight flat plate, and they need these ridges and designs and these contours to the plate in order to grab and deflect water off to the side. So it's really kind of a hybrid shape between a true tab and a gate or brake style surf system that goes out the side of the boat. The reason why they have those elements is because the hull is really flat and the water needs some additional deflection in order to create a proper surf wave. Where the Centurion is doing a lot of that heavy lifting with the hull design itself, it parting the water to one side or the other with that V hull, and the plates just adding some additional assistance. The main difference you're going to notice with these effects is just the shape of your surf wave. With the Centurion wave being a longer wave that stretches further back, and the MasterCraft wave being more of a J shape, where it goes and wraps and goes more horizontal towards the back of the boat. We'll cover that in the next video when we go through and show you the different surf waves between the boats. The last thing to talk about here at the back of the boats is the center plate that is running on each of them. Like I mentioned, the tab style surf system designs are really similar, as is the center plate, but there's a fairly big distinct difference. The MasterCraft center plate is just a standard trim plate like you've seen on different surf and wakeboard boats going back, 25 years. The Centurion, on the other hand, has the patented silent stinger plate. It's actually got multiple patents that are designed into it that not only diffuse exhaust out, similar to the surf pipe you see here on the MasterCraft, but it does it without influencing or impacting the wave whatsoever. This is how you get the really nice, clean, smooth surf wave on a Centurion that is difficult to get on other boats. And that is because the exhaust is not only porting out these pipes here, but is diffused out the plate and rushed away from the hull of the boat and dispersed in a really equal pattern, so you don't have a big plume of exhaust that comes right out, right up the surf wave or by a rider. All right, we're moving back here into the inside of the boat. We're at the transom and we're starting off here in the MasterCraft X26. So you've got a little bit different design elements in the MasterCraft versus the Centurion. First thing to talk about is these bucket seats. Now, this area is one place I personally think MasterCraft excels. In fact, we'll talk about as we go through the interior, but I actually think that seat ergonomics wise, MasterCraft actually does a better job than any other towboat brand in the industry. But these seats are comfy. You've got an option that this boat isn't equipped with where you can actually have leg rests that kick out and fold out right here. Going through on the walkway going up, you've got a really high elevated platform walkway. You've got a small little storage cubby right here. Like you've got one comp vest and that's about all that can really fit. So it's not, they tout it as like a vest warmer. I found that we'd have the same thing in Centurions, honestly. They don't work for vest warming, but you could throw like a vest or a surf rope or something like that back there if you want access. One downside of having these deep recessed bucket seats is that you do lose your storage. So you have a plug and play bag in here, but it's basically designed to take up that entire storage locker. So there's no storage here in the back of the boat, and really where that's primarily the about only ballast this boat has, there's not really an option of running without it. So you pretty much have no storage space here at the back end area of the boat at all. But for a hangout perspective, hanging out here in these rear bucket seats, it is top notch. Let's jump over to the Centurion and take a look at how that boat is set up on the transom. All right, we're now here at the back of the Ri265, and as you can see, totally different design and layout compared to the X26. First off, you have this storage locker here at the back of the Ri265, that is a really large locker that has an optional plug and play ballast bag back here. Now, the one difference between the ballast here versus the ballast in the X26 is that this ballast is supplemental. There's still a ton of ballast. In fact, over 5,000 pounds of ballast if you leave this plug and play bag completely empty. The really nice thing about it is if you're going out with just a small crew in this big of a boat, you can still throw a world-class surf wave. However, if you've got a big crew, you have the ability to use this completely as storage. So it has the ability to be a flex space that can either be ballast or storage space. I actually have some guys that take it out completely and just add additional supplemental steel or lead weight into the boat and add just a couple 100 pounds. And that way you have a big, large storage locker that can hold skis or different surfboards or things like that. So that is one thing you have that's a little bit different design. You also have here at the back of the boat a rear backup camera, but also you have this little receptacle here on the Ri265 that's on all of the Ri series boats. That is a receptacle so you can have an optional table that you can set up. So if you want to hang out, have drinks or snacks or things like that here at the back of the boat, you have a table that you can set up to do just that. There's also reclining loungers here on the Ri265 as well that have a flip-up backrest that just ratchets up. There's advantages and disadvantages compared to the X26. I don't think these are as comfortable as the ones that MasterCraft does, but they are actually fairly comfortable seats, and you can control how much lean or recline, so you can make it higher or lower depending on what your preference is. The advantage to having those compared to the bucket seats is that you do get storage space on top of your rear lockers. So you don't have these recessed down seats that take up storage space. Instead, you have storage space in here that you can store life jackets, ropes, wetsuits, all kinds of different stuff. In my personal boat, I'll have about 14 life jackets plus ropes and things here in these back lockers without having to have all of that wet gear on the inside of the boat. So from a storage perspective, there's a lot more storage here at the rear of the boat in the Ri compared to the MasterCraft. However, there's those luxury lounge seating in the MasterCraft X26, which is also really nice. So it just depends on which one your preference is. From a comfort standpoint, the MasterCraft wins. From a storage and function standpoint, that goes to the Ri. All right, we're now here in the cockpit of the X26, and this is one of the most uniquely laid out surf boats on the market. In fact, there's really not anything quite like it. You have a reclining rear-facing seat here on the starboard side of the boat. You also have a flip-around seat here on the port side. Now, this isn't exclusive to the X26 as far as surf boats, but the wraparound going up towards the bow, where it's a side profile walkthrough, is. And we'll talk about that a little bit more when we show the bow design. But as far as the interior cockpit, the X26 has some nice features, such as this rear-facing lounger here on the starboard side is extra wide. Same thing here on the port side. The downside is that it has a layout that eats up some of your seating space, meaning you lose a couple seat spaces versus a boat such as an Ri265 that's got a much longer wraparound seating configuration. Now, I'll show you a couple things that I personally really like, as well as some things that other people have kind of a love-hate relationship with, depending on your perspective. Here in the rear, the ergonomics for the rear seats, in my opinion, are the best in the industry. This is one place MasterCraft does a phenomenal job. It's a really comfortable seat that wraps around you. Here going up, this rear-facing seat here also is a comfortable design that has a nice pitch and lean to it. It's wide. It's not really wide enough for two people. I mean, it can be if you're really scrunching together. So the downside is it eats up some of your space, but it is a nice wide profile, but it makes it tight and a little bit narrower right here. This flip around seat for facing forward can be really nice. It's a nice, comfortable seat. However, when you turn around and face rear, it's a little bit awkward because it's got a really aggressive lean to it when you're facing backwards. The other downside to this is that because of the way this is configured, you can only face forward or back. You don't have the ability to do both at the same time. So you can't have somebody sitting in this seat and someone here. You have to kind of pick one or the other. As far as the captain's chair, MasterCraft does a nice job on this. It's not the most comfortable captain's chair on the market, primarily just because when the bolster is flipped up, it's a bit narrow and is not quite as comfortable as some other seats, but it's more comfortable than others. I personally like the seat better than like Malibu's seat or a few others in the industry. However, I don't like it quite as much as an example of the Centurion Ri seat, which in my personal opinion is the most comfortable one in the industry. So from a layout and design, it's a really unique configuration just on your seating on the interior of this boat. As I mentioned, the X26 has the most unique bow configuration of any surf boat in the industry. It's got a side profile walkthrough that goes up towards the bow, and then it's got a wraparound seating configuration to it. So you've got a little bit less space for like your legs to fit, but overall it's a nice design because you can face backwards or forwards. It really doesn't add any additional seating. It's just got a different design and layout. So if you wanted to have a few people sitting and hanging out here, you can. The only thing I don't personally love about this is because of the way it wraps around, you can really only sit 2 or 3 people and have their feet down inside, or you're going to be touching knees against one another, as compared to a center walkway like you have in like the MasterCraft X24, which I think is a little better layout for me personally. Some people absolutely love this design. Some people hate it. It's just a total personal preference as to which one you like. Now that we've checked this out, let's jump over to the 265. All right, we're here in the 265, and as you can see, it's a really different layout in this boat compared to the X26. This one's got a lot more of a stretch limousine factor to it. It's a much longer cockpit with a lot more wraparound seating. So from a total seat, like butts in seat standpoint, the Ri265 is probably going to hold 2 or 3 more people in the cockpit and do so a bit more comfortably. As far as a comfort factor, it's still a really comfortable boat layout. The lean and design on these seats, I don't like quite as much as what you get on the MasterCraft. However, it is a really functional design. As you can see, this seat tilts just slightly, making it so that you can have somebody sit here. You could also have somebody sit here if you want to with quite a number of people, or you can just sit and face directly back. You've also got your rear facing seat here. You've got a flip up that goes right there that you can slide your legs underneath. So you have the ability to have more people facing backwards. One really different thing on the Ri265 is you do have the ability to use this sliding bench seat that you can have stadium seating with additional seats facing towards the rear. In fact, we've had many customers that actually do 2 sliding seats in the Ri265 because of how much real estate there is. The seating and the configuration for the MasterCraft X26 actually doesn't even allow for a flip around rear facing seat that goes here in the middle. So from a rear facing seating standpoint, out of the box, if you don't configure anything, the X26 has about the same, maybe slightly more. Once you configure it and set it up differently, the Ri265 can have as many as 8 people facing backwards, where the MasterCraft is really going to be tagged and limited at about 4. So it really depends on what your crew size is, and if you're going to be wanting to have the ability to face forward, or if you're going to want to have a lot more seating that faces back towards where the action is going on at the back of the boat. All right, we're back in the MasterCraft, and now we're going to look at storage space. We already took a look at the rear. There's really no storage at the transom of the boat. Here, when you move to the inside, you've got some storage space here underneath your seat here on the starboard side of the boat. It goes down about 1.5 feet right here. So decently deep, not super deep right there. You've got some storage space that goes underneath this seat right here. Just a bit there. You've got a trash can. There's about 1 foot of storage under here, and then a little bit more back there. You could maybe throw a tube or some life jackets or something like that there. On this side here, on the port side, you've got a space for a cooler. This is a little bit smaller cooler, probably about a 20-quart cooler. I don't know the exact size, but somewhere right in there. You've also got storage space underneath this seat that's not super deep, but enough to where you could throw a few items like towels and things of that nature. There's a couple storage spaces in the X26 that are really unique just among surf boats in general. The first one is that they reconfigured some of the design with their fuel tank and ballast system. So there's quite a bit of storage here in the floor of the boat. You see we've got a bunch of big fenders that sit right here. It's really deep. The advantage to this is you've got a lot of space. The downside is your opening to access it is really small, and it goes really deep far down in. So functionality-wise, it's going to be kind of hard to access stuff in there, but it is a large storage locker that you can use. You also have this space that can be used as a space for storage. It's designed as kind of your head, so you can have a toilet that sits down in there. It's really the only toilet access type surf boat that's on the market at this point anymore. But you can use it as a place to store a whole bunch of stuff. Once again, really deep going down in, not the easiest access, but if you want to store a large amount of stuff, it can work great. You can throw a tube in there or some other different things of that nature. Then going up here, there's an additional in-floor storage locker. It's fairly small, but it goes down fairly deep. But it's more of a triangle shape that is right here in the walkway. So you could throw a couple life jackets or maybe some fenders or something like that in that storage space. And then you've got a small storage locker here underneath a seat cushion here in the bow that you could throw like your boat cover or something along those lines. So you have some storage underneath the sides. Most of the storage in this boat, however, is encapsulated in the floor right there in the center and in your main head space area right here, which replaces your typical observer locker. So now that we've taken a look at this, let's look at the storage in the Ri265. All right, in the Ri265, storage is laid out a bit differently. We already talked about the storage here at the Transom, where you can store about 14 life jackets, ropes, wetsuits, all that stuff, and that is with all of your plug and play bags full. You also have that flex locker at the very back that you can either fill with ballast when you have a small crew, or you can leave it empty when you have a big crew and make it so that you have a bunch of additional storage space back there for anything you want, tubes, life jackets, skis, anything of that nature. Moving here to the cockpit, you've got a lot of storage underneath the side portions of the boat. So when you open up these lockers, you got about a foot of storage space that sits down underneath of them. It's not quite as deep as the storage lockers in the X26, and that's primarily because of the ballast capacity of this boat. I mentioned earlier it's got about 50% more ballast than the X26 does, and that's one of the reasons why it eats up a little bit of your storage space. However, you still have quite a bit, and it's really functional because you can pull it up and access it and get to it really easily without having to stand on your head into the bottom of the boat. As opposed to having a smaller cooler underneath the side seats, the Ri265 has a really large in-floor cooler. So you can open this up. You got this big giant 41 quart Grizzly cooler that sits in there that you can pull out and have access to. In my personal boat, I actually like to take this cooler out, slide this back seat forward a notch, and set the cooler right there in this spot. This makes it so you have a nice cascading walkway going in and out. You can access a cooler really easily without having to have anybody stand up and move or lift any latches. And this turns into a big giant storage locker that's about the same size as the one in the X26 in the floor. However, the opening is a little bit wider and larger, so it's really easy access. Moving a little bit further up here, you have this rear-facing storage hutch, storage underneath the sides. You also can lift this up, and you have access with a trash can right there. You have a quick, easy trash can access right here. One thing that's a little bit different in the Ri265 is they're actually dual trash cans. You have one here, and you have one here. You can take any of them out and use as storage space if you want to, but if you want two trash cans, you have the ability to have both. You also have this big main observer locker. So it's got a split back so that you can flip it up like this. This makes it nice and easy that if you just want to slide forward and access something inside, you can. Then you can lift up this cushion and you have full access to the large main storage locker area. This boat's got batteries that sit underneath this seat, so it's quick, easy access to your batteries. You don't have to pull the floor or anything of that nature. But you got this big, large storage locker that you can fit. Really, I primarily put tubes in there just because everything else can be dispersed throughout the boat really easily. But you can put boards in there, or just about anything else that you want. But most of the time when I'm actually in my boat, that spot stays completely empty just because there's enough storage in other areas that's even easier to access. When we move up to the bow, you've also got storage space underneath all of the seats in the bow. You've got a nice spot. You have this center fill cushion, which sometimes guys will put their cover or a tube or something like that underneath this if you want to. And then you have anchor storage here in the front and storage underneath the side seats. Overall bow storage between this boat and the MasterCraft are going to be fairly comparable, but the cockpit area storage is just a little bit different layout and design. The MasterCraft probably has slightly more volume of total storage. However, the storage is a lot easier and more accessible to get to in the Ri265. And if you include the transom locker, if you leave that empty, the total volume of storage is actually larger in the Ri265. So comparison from one to the next just depends on what your personal preference is. This is one area from a functionality standpoint I would give it to the Centurion, but both have got plenty of storage for everything you're going to want to take on your boat. One thing we want to talk about with the interior of the boats is the hot topic of Cool Touch vinyl. So MasterCraft was the first manufacturer to introduce a Cool Touch vinyl, and they do it a little bit differently than other boat manufacturers do, such as Centurion. So with MasterCraft, it has to do with the weaving and the way that the vinyl is constructed of how they get their Cool Touch, where with Centurion, it has to deal with an application on the vinyl. There's pros and cons to this, just like other things. The benefit to the way MasterCraft does it is it's going to stay cooler in the sun, particularly the black color. So if you want to do like an all black interior or primarily black interior, such as the X26 we have here, that black is going to stay a little bit cooler than the Cool Touch vinyl that Centurion does. On the other side, the way that Centurion manufactures and does the vinyl is going to be a lot more resilient and hold up better. This is the #1 cause of warranty concerns for MasterCraft, at least according to different MasterCraft dealers I've talked to, in that they replace a lot of different vinyl panels because the vinyl starts to split and separate. However, it is going to stay a little bit cooler. So it really just depends on how long you're planning on owning your boat and what color interior as to which one is going to be the better fit. If you want an all black interior, that is a great thing that MasterCraft can provide. If you're wanting to get a brown interior or any other color, then having a more resilient vinyl might be a better fit for you. Last thing to talk about here on the interior of the boats is the dash system. Now, if you may have noticed, the MasterCraft that we have here does not have the most updated recent dash. This boat that we're looking at is a 2024 as compared to the new 2025s that got a new dash system. If you're wondering why we don't have a 2025, well, getting these boats to be able to do comparisons can be really challenging. So that is the reason why we're running an X26 that's a 2024 versus a 2025. That said, Centurion and MasterCraft both got new Helm complete redesigns for 2025. This is the 2025 dash system in a Centurion, where MasterCraft got a new dash system as well in 2025. From a functionality standpoint, you're going to be dealing with pretty similar characteristics. You have all kinds of different controls and ability to do things such as adjust ballast, lighting, speed, stereo, all of those different components with both of the different dash systems. Personally, I actually like the aesthetics of MasterCraft's dash a little bit better. It's a little simpler design, where the Centurion looks more like an airplane cockpit, the MasterCraft looking a little bit more like a Tesla, but that one's just a total personal preference issue. From a functionality standpoint and what you can expect between the two, you're going to be really similar, with both having top-notch dash systems that are phenomenal boat designs that are here for 2025. We're here in the X26 and we're going to take a look at the tower design. Now we've got the tower that this one is a manual fold. It's not a power folding tower, but it's a weight assist tower. The way it works is you've got this button that sits right here. You pop the button and then you pull and grab the tower and kind of pull it down. So it requires a little bit of effort to drop it down and to set it here. And then it requires a little bit of effort to push and move it back up. But it is a real quick, easy folding up and down tower. So that part is really nice. The Bimini system in this boat is fairly easy to deploy. The biggest downside to it is that getting the boot off of it or back on, it's 6 different zippers you have to undo in order to get to it. But once you do that, then you fold it forward and you just snap these arms in, and it works pretty decently from there. The Bimini's got decent coverage, not quite as much coverage as what you get with like a so-long Bimini with on the Centurion, but it's got decent coverage overall. I've used a lot of different Biminis. This one, if I was giving it a grade, I'd probably put it at a B, maybe a B+. It's a lot better than a lot of other Biminis from other different boat manufacturers. The one downside though is if you're going to drop the tower down, you do have to fold the Bimini up, drop the tower down that you can do for storage or to cover the boat, and then you got to go and undo the other 6 zippers and that to deploy it out when you get to the lake. So that is the plus side or the minus side to it, is you do have to collapse the Bimini down if you're wanting to fold the tower down and adjust it, as well as it's just an up and down, a typical folding tower like is available on most boats, which is a little bit different with the Centurion. Last up, talking about board racks, MasterCraft has their clamping board racks, which the way that these work is they've got this lock system. You just fold it up and latch it in on either side. It works fairly decently well. It's better than some other different clamp systems. The downside to it is it's still a sandwich design that's going to smash or hold your board in this way, which is prone to having boards fly out, going out the back, or prone to damaging your fragile EPS style surfboards. So that is a downside there. You do have Bimini storage sleeves up in this, or at least straps that hold boards down. So for storing surfboards, it does decently well. Doesn't look like it'll work very well for holding foils up in the Bimini, but if you're going to hold surfboards, it should do a decent job overall. So from a total standpoint, as far as functionality goes, MasterCraft actually has one of the more functional towers on the market, and they do a really good job. With that said, let's jump over to the Centurion and take a look at the Predator tower. All right, we're here in the Ri265 and we are checking out the Predator Power Tower. Now, this is a new tower that Centurion introduced in 2024, and it's been a major hit. In fact, almost everybody wants a boat with it just because of the awesome functionality it has. You have the ability to deploy the Bimini, have the tower move up and down with the Bimini staying at a static level, meaning you can choose the point where the tower is at and just stop. You can also tow a rider from that point. So it's not just a simple folding tower that goes up and down. You can actually drop the tower down 6 inches, have it stop and hang out there. Now, why would you want to do that? Well, as a driver, you're hanging out here in the driver's seat, and you ever have those pesky times that you have the sun just right at the wrong level? Well, you can just press a button, drop the tower down a touch, cover up the sun, and make it so you have perfect shade exactly where you want to be. It's a super functional tower that makes it so that you can tow a rider from any position, any spot, and just stop where you want to. It also makes it extra easy for dropping the tower down and throwing a cover over the top, something that MasterCraft pioneered years ago. I actually have 2 different Bimini options on this tower. This one is equipped with a so-long folding canopy top, which is a Bimini that folds up. This gives you the ability to have it deployed as you see here, or you can have it fold up so you can have extra sun. You can also opt for a solid shade Bimini, which is going to be a solid rigid frame Bimini with a canvas that goes over the top that is going to stay static 100% of the time. Which one is going to be ideal for you is just depending on a number of factors, such as how you're going to be covering and towing your boat and which one's going to be a better overall fit. With that being said, you've got larger Bimini coverage with these Biminis than what you get on the MasterCraft. Also, the deploying of the so-long Bimini is even faster than what you have with the MasterCraft with a single zipper instead of 6, and just the ability to flip it over, pull the 2 pins in, and you're set. So it's a little bit faster to deploy. It's also more rigid when it is up, meaning you can go faster down the road. We actually have guys that will leave the Bimini fully deployed and drive down the road with it on. We don't recommend going 80 miles an hour on the freeway, but for driving with the Bimini up while you're just driving down the road going a slower speed, it actually works totally fine, as well as you can drive down the lake at any speed. And this Bimini also has the ability to have an extension that goes off the rear and off the front, similar to what MasterCraft does. The main difference here is that the shade sail extensions on the so-long Bimini from Centurion is going to be something that you can use while you are surfing or driving down the lake. Meaning you can have that full shade extension that extends and covers the entire cockpit area of a boat the size of an Ri265 and do so while you are out surfing, as opposed to just being a hangout option, which is what is available on most other towboats. The next piece with the tower are the board racks. We looked at the racks on the MasterCraft and the clamping system. The Predator tower comes equipped with the Bombshell 2.0 board racks. These have got some additional functionality that is really nice, including life jacket hooks right here that you can hang your vests up and let them drip dry. You've also got life jacket hooks up on the top of the Predator tower right here, so you can have vests drip into the middle of the boat, which is really nice when you're out on the lake for multiple days, such as Lake Powell or something like that, and you want to dry your vests out. From a board holding perspective, these have a different mechanism versus a clamp system. Instead, they've got a hook style system where you just slide your board in like this, pull it out, have it hold your board, and have it sandwich it in just like this. This is really nice because it's going to, number one, not allow boards to escape. I've never seen boards come out of these racks, where I've seen them come out of clamping racks fairly regularly while you're driving down the lake. The second thing is going to securely hold even your most fragile EPS surfboards, which means you're not going to dent them, damage them, break the rail, or any of those other things that I've seen regularly with clamping racks. So even though the clamping racks are way better than like bungee racks or any other style like that, these hook style Bombshell 2 racks are top notch and really take it to the next level for board storage. Last thing to talk about with these boats in this video is the audio systems. So MasterCraft is running audio systems by Klipsch. They've got 6 internal speakers here in the cockpit, 4 tower speakers, and then 2 subwoofers. 6 internal speakers is in both the bow and the cockpit of the boat. So total of 6 internals, 2 subwoofers, 4 tower speakers. Overall, good audio quality that you end up getting with this stereo. This is one thing we can't really show in video very well. I mean, we can listen to it and hang out and listen to the music and it sounds great, but it doesn't really translate when you're watching this video at home. So, but overall, the audio system in this boat is solid. It's not the best audio system I've heard in any boat, but it's an overall nice audio system that provides good sound and decent transparency going back out to surfers behind the boat. Last up, audio system in the Ri265. So this Ri265 is equipped with the surround fire audio system. This is a brand new system for 2025, and it is really like nothing else we've ever seen in a surf boat. So this stereo system not only has a unique design that has actual downward facing speakers here in the tower, as well as 12-inch rear facing speakers that are sitting here in the main grille, but these speakers are a unique design that is proprietary to the surround fire audio system. These are the new R1 Pro speakers that are by far the loudest speakers that we have ever seen in a surf boat. In fact, right here on the tower speakers, there is a warning label because of how loud the system can get. So even though it's about the same number of speakers as what you had in the MasterCraft, the one difference being there's 6 speakers up here in the tower as opposed to 4 because of the 2 downward facing ones. This stereo system has the ability to crank and get extremely loud. Now, most of us don't want to turn our stereo up to 125 decibels, so we don't. But what that means is that you can turn it up to higher volume levels without having sound distortion, meaning that you can run the stereo loud and it's crystal clean. You can also adjust via the equalizer how much bass is going through the subwoofers in this boat, how much is running through the tower system, how much is in the interior, and have full zone controls over everything going on in this boat. This gives you a better overall audio experience than what you're going to find, not just in the MasterCraft, but honestly in all of their surf boats in general. And the system is really something you got to hear to believe because of the not just volume capacity, but the overall sound quality that this stereo system can produce. That wraps up a comparison of the features on the MasterCraft X26 and the Centurion Ri265. In this video, you've hopefully been able to identify the pros and cons and what you like better about each boat. For me personally, the MasterCraft wins for seat ergonomics and design, for helm layout and dash system, and for a lot of their different machine billet parts that go throughout the interior of the boat. For the Centurion, the main takeaway wins are the tower design, the board racks, the Bimini, the layout, and the functionality of the storage space throughout the boat. Next up, we're going to break down the performance in our next video in this series, so make sure to check that out. If you want more information with other boat comparisons and other details regarding surf boats, don't forget to check out our YouTube channel on boardco.com and boardco.com for more information. Once again, this is Mitch from Boardco. We'll see you next time.